right. To begin with, I want to remind our panelists that this session will last for 60 minutes. And so I want to plead with each one of you to maybe use a maximum of 3 minutes during your intervention. And so, that said, we want to start, with something that is so relevant, that is the key drivers, trends, and dynamics of conflict in Central Africa. And as a matter of fact, I have one question which I'm going to ask to each one of you, the panelists, and this is, what are the most pressing drivers of conflict and fragility in Central Africa? And how have they evolved in the past 5 years? What are the most pressing drivers of conflict in Central Africa? I would like to start with you, Esther Omam.
Thank you, moderator. Good afternoon, dear participants, scholars, partners, peace builders. Today is my day of birth. Wow. And I am not at a celebration table. I choose to be here with you all because that is what matters to me most, and it is the best gift I could have on this day, to sit and talk about my passion. Oh, I'm not talking from theory, but from the trenches. And not talking about peace as on the paper, but as a plea. Because sometimes before I delve into your question, I was called up to talk to two angry factions, conflicting factions, factions in Meme division. And that day, after talking, negotiating, mediating, advising, guiding, they all agreed to come together, see themselves as brothers and sisters. And after doing that, immediately after I finished doing that, my phone buzzed. And I was asking myself, why? I look at it, and I was called up, and I was told that my staff and my daughter have been kidnapped. Peace that day was not theory. It was reality. And it made me to understand that it was a desperate, deviant act of survival. That's why if I want to talk about the most pressing drivers of conflict and fragility in Central Africa today, I would say we have governance deficits, as we see, not only in our country, but across Central Africa. We have contested power structures. You and I here today, can attest to that. We've seen it lately. Ethnic and identity-based tensions, youth marginalization, resource exploitation, and cross-border inflow. This is what we have as drivers of conflict these days across Central Africa. And in the past 5 years, we've seen this evolving into a serious rise in violent extremism. We've seen a rise in authoritarianism. We've seen the shrinking of civil space and the manipulation of identity for political gain. The digital misinformation and external interference have aggravated all of this. These, to me, are the drivers and how they have evolved in the past 5 years.
Thank you so much. Based on what you have said, I think these are mostly structural drivers of conflict and fragility when we talk about issues of governance and so on. And I want to turn to Mrs. Ndogmo. What is your take on that?
Thank you so much. I want to send one greetings to all the participants here, all protocol observed. It's also my birthday today.
Wow.
Yes. We are twins.
And for those who visited my Facebook or my social media pages, I send a strong message for peace, not only in Cameroon, but in the world, because there's no possible development that we can achieve without peace. So that is why, and my children always say, Mommy, why do you always celebrate your birthday out of the house? I don't know. I'm always in activities for like the 7th year's birthday. So, but it's my pleasure. I want to add to what my sister already said, to talking from the experience of the organization that I chair today. It's the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. It's the world's oldest feminist peace organization that was created because of the First World War. That is the essence, how the organization was created. Because they had an agenda on that day, the voting right of women, but they were prevented from having their meetings because of the war. So the peace agenda invited them itself on their table, and they started interrogating themselves. Why is it that there's no possibility? Is there not another possibility of getting a solution to conflict rather than using violence? So that's how the organization was created, to look for alternative solutions to violence, to militarization, and so on. So our organization that time, 1915, was able to do a diagnosis and understand that there are certain system of operations, because the root causes of the conflict. There's no possibility, dear moderator, that you can understand conflict, that you can understand fragility in Central Africa, in all the part of the world, without understanding the root causes. So that is the principle of the organization, and it still holds today. We need to understand. And when we diagnosed at that time, we were able to see that there are systems of operation that are interrelated. So that's the same thing in Central Africa. We have a lot of things interrelated. My sister already mentioned, number one, I have the same governance, poor governance. This is number one. We know what happened when there is poor governance, corruption, lack of transparency, inequality. Of course, it fuels violence, it fuels conflict. And we are not talking about Cameroon, we are talking about the Central Africa, and we have witnessed that in many countries in Central Africa. And the other thing, when I traveled to Bangui, I was very surprised, because I'm always told that this is one of the poorest countries of the world. But I was able to see international planes in a poor country. Why? What are you doing there? When the country is so poor? No, it is so poor but so rich. Yes, so they fight over natural resources. And Cameroon is not different from that dynamic. So the fight over natural resources is one of the root causes of conflict in Central Africa. I can also talk about political exclusion and militarization of politics. As my sister said, I don't need to argue so much, because we know what is going on in our own country. Yeah, militarization, exclusion, marginalization, it is a problem, because at the end of the day, the social fabrics are dismantled. Armed proliferation and militarization, yeah, of course. As they say, conflict will always exist, but how do we address the conflict? Do we invest in weapons? Do we invest in military responses? Or do we invest, like we say in WILF, we have a campaign that we call Move the Money from War to Peace. Do we move the money from war to peace? Do we invest in education? Do we invest in building infrastructure? Do we invest in gender equality? So what is our priority? Gender-based violence is another issue. It's another issue. We all know gender-based violence and the exclusion of women. We know the role of women, not only in Cameroon, but all the Central African countries. Women are a very important dividend, demographic speaking. But what is the place of those women. So gender inequality, gender-based violence, those women are deprived from their potential because of the violence they all suffer. I don't want to go very far. My brother, you know, the feminicide, the rate of feminicide in Cameroon. We cannot spend a day without getting news in the media that a woman has been killed by the boyfriend, by the husband, and it just goes like it's a normal thing. So these are some of the drivers of conflict within the region that we really need to address. But I think all is not lost. It depends on all of us, because it's not about being on the floor. It's about trying to get up, but it's about working together to come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Dogmore. It is understood that we cannot address conflict and fragility in Africa without getting into the deep-rooted causes. And you have said these are issues of governance deficit, exclusionary politics and policies, gender-based violence. And let me turn to Mr. Nanga to also get your point of view regarding this matter.
Merci. Je ne vais pas être très éloigné de ce qui a été dit par mes deux collègues. En Afrique centrale, moi j'ai identifié au moins deux causes. Il y en a plusieurs, mais au moins deux. La principale, en tout cas ces 5 dernières années, relève de la gouvernance politique. Si vous regardez le Tchad, depuis ces 5 dernières années, c'est des centaines de personnes tuées sur les questions de gouvernance politique. Quand je parle de la gouvernance politique ici, je parle de la gestion des affaires publiques, je parle de l'accession au pouvoir, je parle des questions électorales. Ces 5 dernières années, on en a eu des centaines de personnes tuées au Tchad, on en a eu au Gabon, on en a au Congo et on en a au Cameroun. Pendant longtemps, nous avons été présentés comme un pays de paix, mais vous savez qu'on a été rattrapé depuis quelque temps. Et aujourd'hui, malheureusement, notre pays est rentré dans le cercle vicieux des pays en conflit permanent. Donc, ça, c'est la première cause principale ces 5 dernières années. Vous avez circonscrit la question sur les 5 dernières années. Maintenant, la deuxième cause, qui n'est pas loin de la gouvernance politique, c'est la question de la gouvernance de manière générale. Pour ne pas dire la gouvernance des ressources. Et là, le problème se pose également dans tous ces pays-là. Avec une particularité au Congo, RDC à côté, le Congo, Brazzaville aussi à côté. Ça ne nous épargne pas évidemment, nous aussi, avec une conséquence, n'est-ce pas, qui affecte la mobilité des personnes. Nous avons l'occasion de travailler, quand je dis nous, c'est l'ONG Monde Avenir, sur les questions de migration, de liberté d'aller et de venir en Afrique centrale. Et vous allez constater que ces pays, la sous-région Afrique centrale est l'une des rares sous-régions qui reste fermée d'un pays à un autre. La mobilité n'est pas ouverte. Il y a encore même des exigences de visa pour certains pays. Officiellement, c'est levé, mais vous ne pouvez pas partir d'ici pour la Guinée équatoriale, n'est-ce pas? Il faut prendre un visa pour aller chez nos voisins. Le Gabon, ça fait pas longtemps qu'ils ont limité, mais il y a toujours des difficultés, même pour avoir cette possibilité de se déplacer vers là. Le Congo, c'est pareil. Voilà, la RCA, nous travaillons là-dessus. Là aussi, c'est pareil. Pour traverser, il faut monnayer, c'est de suite pour avoir la possibilité d'y aller. Donc, la première cause, comme je l'ai dit, c'est la question de la gestion du pouvoir. Vous allez aussi remarquer que nous sommes l'une des rares sous-régions du monde entier. Hein. C'est un peu comme si c'était des cousins qui étaient à la direction des affaires publiques en Afrique centrale, parce qu'ils ont presque le même comportement. Oui, mais c'est une réalité. Bon. Donc, en Guinée équatoriale, vous avez un monsieur qui est là depuis plus de 30 ans. Au Cameroun, bon, voilà. au Gabon, vous voyez qu'il a fallu les armes pour que quelqu'un, n'est-ce pas, s'approprie le pouvoir. Au Congo, voilà. Donc, vraiment, l'Afrique centrale, c'est ce matin, quelqu'un disait c'est une particularité. C'est une véritable particularité, j'ai envie de dire une curiosité planétaire. On en parle en rigolant, mais ça ne fait pas du plaisir. On est une sous-région très riche, mais très riche sur le plan des ressources, comment je vais dire, naturelles, très riche sur le plan des ressources humaines. Ça, c'est, je ne sais pas, l'Afrique de l'Ouest ne vaut pas au niveau international. Vous retrouvez les gens du Gabon, du Cameroun, partout. C'est eux qui occupent les grands postes dans des grandes institutions au niveau international. Mais curieusement, l'Afrique centrale est la dernière sous-région en matière de développement. Tout simplement parce qu'on est englué dans les conflits de leadership politique et les conflits de gestion des affaires, des ressources naturelles. Donc, ça crée ce que ça crée aujourd'hui, avec des milliers de morts. Si on rassemble toutes les personnes qui sont chaque année, tous les ans, ces 5 dernières années seulement, à être tuées, ben vous allez voir qu'on est à des milliers. Le Cameroun était épargné jusqu'à là, mais nous, on fait le suivi des conflits dans le nord-ouest, le sud-ouest et avec Boko Haram. Et ces 5 dernières années, nous avons comptabilisé pas moins de 4 millions de personnes 4000 plutôt, 4000 personnes tuées. Donc, vous voyez que la question, vraiment, la cause principale, il me semble, aujourd'hui, que nous, on a identifié, c'est la question de la gestion du pouvoir. On est une sous-région fermée en tout point de vue, fermée sur le plan politique, parce que ceux qui sont au pouvoir n'entendent pas partager, encore moins, n'ont pas l'intention du tout de céder. Donc, du coup, ça crée, n'est-ce pas, des tensions sur la base, n'est-ce pas, de quelque chose qui est pourtant reconnu par tous ces pays-là, parce que là aussi, c'est quelque chose qui est curieux en Afrique centrale. Nous avons des pays en Afrique centrale qui n'hésitent pas à ratifier les instruments internationaux qui, n'est-ce pas, encadrent les questions pour lesquelles nous discutons, les questions de paix, sécurité et tout ça, mais qui ont du mal à implémenter des activités qui vont dans ce sens-là. Voilà pour le premier jet, ce que je peux dire à propos des causes, n'est-ce pas, de crise qui affectent la paix dans notre pays, dans notre sous-région depuis quelques années.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naga. Merci beaucoup. I think that we all have come into an agreement that the deep-rooted causes of conflict and fragility in Central Africa is poor governance or bad governance, or again, governance deficit, what I also call weak politics, and also the poor management of our natural resources. These are the deep-rooted causes, but then we also have, of course, immediate causes. You know, like we were saying, in order for us to really address issues of conflict and fragility, we must go deep down to the root causes, but also there are immediate causes. But for now, I would like us to maybe think about the role that civil society and especially think tanks have played in conflict resolution and peace building in Central Africa. And so the question I have is, what specific contributions have think tanks and civil society organizations made to peace-building efforts in Central Africa's sub-region? And I will once again turn to Ms. Omam, Esther. What is your take on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Usually the question people ask is, what are they doing? What have they done? What can they do? Simply because they do not understand or do not come closer to look at what has been done and the impact of the work that has been done. Think tanks and civil society organizations like Richard Cameroon have been doing a great lot in Central Africa, and here even in Cameroon where we are, which is part of Central Africa. We've carried out so many peace building initiatives at grassroots level because there was a total disconnect between grassroots, you know, and those at the forefront at national level. And there was need, you know, to put this connection in place. And so, for example, we had to train 300 community women mediators, turn them into peace hubs, others into peace champions. And these are the ones who were going to their various communities, talking to their men, to their leaders, to their boys. And some of the boys had to hand over the weapons. And some had to leave farmlands which they occupied in order to allow the women to continue farming. Some had to leave the classrooms which they occupied because the women asked them to, in order to allow the children go back to school. We've organized National Peace Table, Women, Peace and Security Fairs. We've done so much negotiations, you know, behind the scene. At corridor level, we've done advocacy at grassroots, national, international, at international level. If at all this conflict, even, not only Cameroon in Central Africa, because Richard Cameroon works in DRC and Nigeria, if at all this conflict has gained, the conflict, for example, the Anglophone conflict gained attention, is because some of us had to sacrifice, go up to UN, speak to the UN Security Council, tell them that their silence is costing us a lot. Their silence is costing our children their education. Their silence is costing the women, their men, and their families. So we also develop tools. We develop peace-building tools which we disseminated across the national territory, which benefited the 10 regions. When I'm talking about our example, this is similar to what other civil society are doing in other places in Central Africa. We use mobile health clinic and GBV clinics, you know, to get into communities and cause them to dialogue among themselves, have returnees, and then carry out stabilization activities while addressing the core issues within their various communities, trying to solve community conflict problems which they had. Now, we cannot do this alone. We have to do this while belonging. And that's why we belong to movements, to networks, so that we have multiplier effects. It shouldn't only just be one. And think tanks have carried out evidence-based research. Even if not satisfactory, as I would say, because there is a growing disconnect between think tanks today and the lived realities, because you have the reports, you have research which is done, but the question I always ask wherever I go is based on 2 W's. Of what use is research when it cannot save a child from a bullet? Of what value? Of what value is knowledge when it cannot protect, it cannot dignify, it cannot make people return to their communities? Now, these thoughts have provoked us into positive actions, and even the think tanks into positive actions like what we are witnessing here today. We are here because we want to correct those concerns and assumptions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. From your intervention, it is showing that think tanks are actually playing a key role in peace building in Central Africa. First of all, they are building the capacity of community members and also doing a lot of advocacy. And you just mentioned something about research. Research, evidence-based, and evidence-based policy. This is a very important aspect. But like you said, if think tanks they carry out research and there is evidence and nothing is done about it, then more or less think tanks, maybe they are wasting their time. So let me turn to Madame Ndogmo, and I would like to know, in your point of view, how are think tanks and civil society organizations able to influence policy and decision-making processes in peace and security in the Central African sub-region?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, because they are able to influence because of the work they do at local level, at national level, at international level, at regional level, at international level, with a bottom-up approach. I want to mention a few things that are done concretely. My sister already mentioned the evidence-based advocacy. It's very important to have evidence in terms of supporting the advocacy. Policy advocacy is done at different levels. Research and data collection is done, connecting local to global, because the advocacy that we do out there is based on the local realities. You cannot just go speaking for speaking's sake. You have to do proper research on the ground to be able to sustain your advocacy message. Mentoring the youth and the capacity. I'm very happy to see that we have one testimony here. Temken is here. He's one of the youths that we were able to identify, and we have been coaching him. We didn't know him before. It starts to our work that we were able to meet one of a vibrant youth, and then we started supporting him like many others, early warning and so on. Just to be very concrete, I've just brought a few just to speak and give some example. I want to just show you this, and we can share copies for tomorrow. It's gender conflict analysis. As I indicated, that it's a study that we conducted between 2019 and 2021 in Cameroon. It's our own contribution to the peace process, because as I indicated, there is no possibility of trying to bring solutions to the conflict without understanding the root causes. So the analysis was able to help us to map out not only the conflict dynamics within the countries, but what are the responses already made at different levels, what are the loopholes. And we came out with a series of 10 series of recommendations at different levels. So this is something that we did and we're still doing, because we need to update our research. I want to show you this. We all know it is the Cameroon National Action Plan on UN Security Council Resolution 1325. When our organization was set up in Cameroon in 2014, that was our first advocacy, because this resolution is calling, of course, you know that it recognizes the role of the impact, the disproportionate impact of conflict on women. So the resolution is calling for the involvement, for the implication of women at all stages. So this is one of the successful advocacy that we and other stakeholders, media, civil society, were able to conduct. Because like Philip said, we had a mindset that we are in a peaceful country. So it was difficult to get us on board having a national action plan. We were told at a very high level that we don't need it now because we are not in a conflict country. Thank God that a few years later, a director at the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Family told us that, les femmes, si elles nous disaient la vérité, so je dis qu'on commence à comprendre. Because we told them that having a national action plan is not about addressing conflict, because there are many pillars, prevention, participation, and so we wanted to stand on the prevention part, but we were not understood. But with the support of UN agencies and other international and the media as well, we were able to conduct this advocacy. I want to mention this one also. It's a report that we had in the last election, 2018. We set up what we call a women's situation room. It's an early warning that helps women to take roles before, during, and after the election and contribute to the peaceful election. We are still conducting it with activities before, during, and after. We want to alert, and we also bring recommendations. We are not just alerting. We use our expertise also in this report to share some of the things that we can give to stakeholders. And during the election day proper, generally 3 days, we have a physical room, and in the room, we have monitors that we have trained before who are there getting the incident from the field and reporting on them. I don't want to take more time, but because we are in an electoral period, very tense electoral period in Cameroon, I want to share this. It's called Election, Politician and Hate Speech. Politician and Hate Speech. We started working last year on this project with UNDEF because we were able to see the dynamics on social media, on the community, every Sunday on the media. Oh my God, people almost fighting, killing themselves by what? As if you are not from the same country. And the worst part of it was that the politicians were playing the same game. So we tried to have this, to come out after consultation in the whole country, to come out with this guide. That is a tool that we have shared with all the political parties. Those who have not got it, we still have copies for minutes, to give them the tools on how to train their militants, how to train their people in the community to know that when we want to go on power, we want to rule people. We don't want all the people to be dead. And therefore, what are we going to rule? So it's a guide to help the politician preserve the social cohesion in our country. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Dongmo. You see, from the documentation, it is quite evident that civil societies and think tanks are playing a key role in the promotion of peace and security in Central Africa. I wonder, how can we get these documents? The topics that are so interesting.
Yes. You can send the links of this to this report to the participants. The participants, yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And of course, the think tanks, civil societies have been doing a lot, advocacy, research, but certainly they also face challenges.
Of course.
All right. All right. For that, I'm going to get to Mr. Nanga. What do you think are some of the challenges faced by civil societies and think tanks in carrying out their activities, especially in relation to peace and security in Central Africa?
Bon, je voudrais d'abord rappeler que la participation, sinon l'apport de la société civile en matière de prévention, de lutte pour la paix ou la cohésion sociale est reconnu par les Nations Unies. Il y a plusieurs résolutions qui existent qui affirment clairement la place de la société civile en matière de prévention des conflits et de maintien de paix. Donc, ça veut dire qu'il y a des actions qui ont été menées, il y a eu des études qui ont montré, il y a des évidences, n'est-ce pas, qui mettent en avant les actions de la société civile. Je vais, avant de parler peut-être des challenges, partager deux expériences que nous avons animées dans le sens de construire la paix ou de prévenir les conflits. Au niveau de l'Afrique centrale, nous travaillons sur la mobilité des personnes et l'intégration sous-régionale. On a observé évidemment qu'il y a des conflits entre les pays voisins. Vous savez, vous devez savoir que la Guinée équatoriale refoule tout le temps des Camerounais. Le Gabon, pareil, et souvent c'est du côté de l'Afrique, la République centrafricaine. Et quand les gens sont refoulés du Gabon vers le Cameroun, bien de la Guinée équatoriale vers le Cameroun, ce n'est pas un simple refoulement. Ce n'est pas des gens qu'on accompagne gentiment à la frontière. Ils sont souvent bastonnés, les biens récupérés, maltraités avant d'être jetés à la frontière comme des malpropres. On a d'ailleurs eu des cas où des gens ont été enchaînés dans des commissariats du côté du Gabon avant d'être renvoyés du côté du Cameroun. Alors, et souvent, ça crée des problèmes entre les ressortissants du Cameroun au Gabon ou en Guinée équatoriale, ainsi de suite. Ce que nous avons pensé, c'est de créer un espace, justement, je ne vais pas dire un think tank, mais créer un espace de discussion, un espace d'échange Parce que quand il y a conflit, nous, on a analysé que généralement, il faut trouver le moyen de faire confronter les différents acteurs susceptibles d'entrer en conflit. Et donc, nous avons réussi à un moment donné à créer un espace de discussion entre les responsables du Gabon, de la Guinée équatoriale et du Cameroun aux frontières. Donc, les responsables de la police, de la gendarmerie et de l'administration publique des trois pays aux frontières, notamment à Kiossi. Et nous avons identifié des leaders des communautés africaines qui sont installées à Kiossi, qui est une ville du Cameroun au sud, où vous avez des Ghanéens, des Togolais, qui ont été refoulés du Gabon et de Guinée, mais qui sont installés au Cameroun en attendant de répartir dans ces pays-là. Et donc, on a identifié des leaders de ces communautés-là, et donc on a créé un espace où on a invité ces responsables, plus les représentants de ces migrants, réfugiés, ces migrants stationnés là-bas à Kiossi. Et pendant quelques jours, on a discuté pour comprendre qu'est-ce qui se passe. Avant, on a partagé l'histoire de nos trois pays pour montrer qu'en réalité, c'est un seul pays. C'est un seul pays. Et si vous allez à Kiossi, c'est très drôle. Nos frontières en Afrique centrale sont vraiment drôles parce que si vous allez à Garoua-Boulaye, la frontière du Cameroun et la République centrafricaine, cette maison, je pense qu'elle a été finalement cassée. Il y avait une maison qui était là-bas, qui était construite au niveau de la frontière et donc qui en fait était construite sur les deux côtés. Donc la maison est construite tout le long. Donc vous avez une côté de la maison qui est en Centrafrique et un côté de la maison qui est au Cameroun. Et vous avez des enfants qui habitent là-bas en Centrafrique de l'autre côté et qui fréquentent du côté du Cameroun. Pareil, vous arrivez en Guinée, vous avez, n'est-ce pas, des cousins, des gens qui sont ici et qui vont au deuil de l'autre côté quand ils ont perdu leur cousin qui est de l'autre côté. C'est l'Ntoumou au niveau du sang, c'est la même ethnie qui est divisée, n'est-ce pas, une partie au Gabon, une partie au Cameroun, une partie en Guinée équatoriale. Mais vous trouvez quand même la frontière là-bas avec des policiers et tout ça. C'est quand même drôle et c'est à la limite, après c'est choquant. Les gens, ils parlent la même langue et il y a des barrières carrément fermées et vous ne pouvez pas traverser pour aller dans votre... pour aller visiter votre cousin. Et donc, on a réuni ces gens-là, on a montré ça qu'en réalité, ça fait pas plaisir de voir qu'on se divise et qu'on protège chacun le même village. Et on a aussi montré qu'il y a des décisions politiques qui existent qui, en réalité, reconnaissent le droit d'aller et de venir pour les ressortissants d'Afrique centrale dans tous ces pays-là. Mais visiblement, les policiers aux frontières semblaient ne pas être au courant qu'il existe des actes officiels pris au niveau de la CEMAC qui garantissent le droit d'aller et de venir pour les ressortissants des pays de la sous-région. Donc, on a partagé ces éléments-là et après, on a donné la parole à chaque acteur pour dire pourquoi, qu'est-ce qui se passe, quel est le problème. Ça a permis que les migrants s'expriment sur leurs problèmes, que les administrations au niveau de la Guinée équatoriale disent quel est leur problème, pourquoi est-ce qu'ils empêchent aux gens de traverser. Gabon, pareil. Alors, c'est un exercice tellement intéressant que les gens se regardaient dans le miroir et ils ressentaient qu'il y avait quand même un problème. Il y avait un problème d'abord parce que culturellement, historiquement, c'est la même communauté. Deux, il y a des textes qui existent qui garantissent le droit d'aller et de venir et personne ne les applique. Et donc, ceux qui étaient réfractaires à la discussion, c'était les Guinéens. Mais finalement, les deux autres étaient d'accord, les Gabonais et les Camerounais, qu'il y a quand même un problème. Bref, parce qu'on n'a pas toute la journée, on a réussi à faire en sorte que les migrants qui sont stationnés à Kiossi soient protégés. Parce qu'ils étaient maltraités aussi par la police camerounaise qui, de temps en temps, les raquettait. Donc, on a fait en sorte qu'il y ait donc une prise en charge. Ces leaders-là, si un migrant a un problème, ils pouvaient donc aller vers le commissaire qui le connaissait, qui était présent. On a fait les rencontres ensemble. Ils avaient un interlocuteur pour, n'est-ce pas, poser leurs problèmes. On a pu aussi échanger avec des médecins, n'est-ce pas, qui se sont engagés à prendre en charge les migrants en cas de maladie et autres. Bref, ça a construit un environnement de paix dans cet endroit où, de temps en temps, on raflait les migrants, on les gardait et ils étaient obligés de cotiser de l'argent pour sortir des cellules. Aujourd'hui, ça ne se passe plus comme ça. Ça, c'est au niveau de l'Afrique centrale. Maintenant, il y a aussi une expérience importante sous la forme d'un think tank qu'on a réussi à mettre dans le littoral, qui me semble une expérience qui pourrait être répliquée au niveau pays et même au niveau de la sous-région. Parce qu'on a expérimenté, on a vu qu'il y a quand même des bienfaits. On a mis en place ce qu'on a appelé un cadre de concertation multi-acteurs. C'est un espace qui réunit le gouverneur de la région, le procureur de la République, le régisseur de la prison, le commandant de la gendarmerie, le délégué général de la Sûreté nationale. Quand je parle de... Ce sont les mais ils envoient leurs représentants. Et qui réunit des élus, également députés, maires, et les leaders de la société civile. Alors, pourquoi on a mis en place cet espace-là? Nous nous sommes dit le littoral, on nous taxe comme étant très réfractaire. Quand il y a des conflits, voilà, ça commence à chauffer au Cameroun, ça commence par Douala et tout ça. Alors, comment faire pour anticiper? Parce que les questions d'électricité, les questions de foncier, il y a des conflits tout le temps dans le littoral et particulièrement à Douala. Comment faire pour empêcher que ces conflits perdurent? Il fallait donc réunir tous ces gens-là pour identifier quels sont les problèmes prioritaires que nous devons traiter et qui sont susceptibles de créer des conflits. Et vraiment, dans un brainstorming, avec tous ces gens-là, on a identifié 2 problèmes prioritaires. Le premier problème, c'était les discours, la prolifération des discours de haine. Le deuxième problème, c'est les coupures intempestives de l'électricité. On a dit, voilà les 2 problèmes. Donc, si on n'adresse pas ces problèmes-là, on aura des conflits, ça peut déboucher à une crise sociale. Alors, puisqu'on me signale que le temps s'en va, je vais juste, j'évoque ce cadre-là pour dire que ça s'est tellement bien passé que quand on parlait des discours de haine, c'est tout le monde qui était d'accord qu'il faut adresser ce problème-là, il faut identifier. On a fait un mémorandum, on a trouvé les éléments, comment intervenir, ainsi de suite. Sur la question de l'électricité, c'était très drôle. Même les commissaires qui étaient là, les commandants de la gendarmerie qui étaient là, posaient leurs problèmes. Ah non, il faut qu'on trouve une solution à ça parce que c'est des bandits, on nous exploite de l'argent, ainsi de suite. Finalement, tout le monde s'est rendu compte que les problèmes qui sont posés par les citoyens sont les mêmes problèmes vécus par ces responsables qui, pourtant, sont ceux qui sont souvent au devant de la scène pour brutaliser les citoyens. Mais ce cadre a permis qu'on se parle au point où le gouverneur de la région s'est saisi de ce cadre-là. Aujourd'hui, c'est lui qui invite les différentes parties aux réunions par message porté.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naga. Thank you so much for this practical example. It shows that think tanks and civil societies have actually put in place platform for dialogue, where communities in conflict have come together to talk about the peace they want. So with that, I will come back to let me see, to Mr. Dogmo, please, about the challenges. I really want us to talk about the challenges. He has somehow simply given us some other aspects of the role of civil society, but we really want to know the challenges that civil society and think tanks face in carrying their peace-building work.
Thank you so much. One of the challenges I want to mention is the shrinking of civic space. Yes, Mr. Nanga mentioned that there are policies, there are legal instruments that clearly define the role of civil society. But sometimes we are poorly perceived. Meanwhile, we are playing our part. We are doing our role. So we are poorly perceived and with a lot of reprisal on us. We know very well, one of the most recent is that Minat was able to issue a list of some NGOs that are entitled to be NGOs. I can talk about Philip Nanga City here. That his organization has applied to become NGO for so many years. So I just want to say that the shrinking space is not is not helping much, because at the end of the day, the work we are doing at every level, our different community, is to support government efforts. But we are well perceived. And this bad perception comes with a lot of dangers. I, for one, we were able to move office like four times or 5 times in 2 years because, I don't know, imagine every time the office is broken, all our computers are taken, USB key, hard drive, and so on. Then after like the 3rd inquiry, one gendarme told us that, Madam, you think seriously that somebody can enter in this hole? So why are we threatened? Simply because you are working. I never knew, for example, that working on the question of civil registration was a threat. I never knew. I never knew that it was a threat until we were able to work on that. Yes, and we were able to work on that, and we started being called to say, okay, when we came, no, we don't want a group, we want just you come. We ask you to give 10 million when we are working and giving a free procedures to support children in communities without birth certificate. Electoral disputes. The early warning mechanism, we train women. I'll just give you one example. We mobilize women at community level to register on the electoral roll, to know their right and so on, and then to go to vote, and to ensure that they play a key role in peaceful election. That's why one of the components in our training package is how the women can play the role of peace ambassador, because at the end of the day, they will pay the highest price. But when we started conducting issues on election, the early warning, we will receive calls that, Madam, Officer Aloy, for what? Officer Aloy, for what? No, our role is to, like the early warning, when we see that something is likely to fuel violence, as Mr. Nanga pointed out, our role is to say, that's why we have policy brief. We inform the authorities that, please be careful, because this is the dynamic that we are seeing here, and so that they can take the concrete measures. Also, another one is, I mentioned already, a civic space, donor-driven constraint. Yes, donor-driven constraint. No, it's about context. We should not be constrained by our donors. And unfortunately, some of us, civil society, just go from, just follow the donors. They are even able to change their mission because of no, we should be really, for think tanks, for civil society to be efficient, to be professional, they have to have a focus and stick to it. And the donor should also respect and understand the mission of an organization. Language hierarchies. Yeah, language barriers. Yes, language barrier, whether we like it or not. Sometimes the message is not easy to come across. Political repression. We have mentioned that. Let me end here. And also, an expert said it this morning. Denial. You know, when you take a mirror, you hold it like that, you look at the mirror shows what you are. Whether you break the mirror or not, it doesn't change anything of the reality. So we should accept that there are issues and look for the ways of addressing it. I want to come to Cameroon. We have been, Philip mentioned it, Afrique en miniature, peaceful country, Havre de paix. But that Havre de paix is no more Havre de paix. It's no more Havre de paix. And still, we don't want to understand that we are no more Havre de paix. We better accept that Cameroon is no more beacon of peace and sit together and see how we can build that peace. We can get Cameroon to regain its legendary reputation of Cameroon beacon of peace. But saying that we are at peace, blah, 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 we are not going anywhere. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Saying that we are at peace, we are not going anywhere. Okay. It shows that civil societies and think tanks face a lot of challenges, both structural and operational. And some have seen civil societies and think tanks as threats. Maybe the government around. And so the space of civil society is really constricted. And also the issue of funding, because of course, the donors, they are the ones who give the money. So somehow they can dictate to civil societies and think tanks what to do. And all of these are actually challenges that affect the peace potential of think tanks. But then, what can we do? What can we really do, to sustain the activities of think tanks. Let me get back to you, Ms. Oma. What can we do? What can be done to sustain the activities of think tanks in peace and security processes?
We need to learn how to diversify our various funding sources. When we just have it static in our minds that it's only one way, it won't go. People only know how to get grants either from one particular donor. What about online fundraising? What about local fundraising? We need to think beyond the now and come up with innovations in terms of funding sources. We also have what we call institutional partnerships. We must do institutional partnership. We must identify those institutions which are favorable with the work of civil society, whose missions align with ours, and see how we can establish a partnership for long-term sustainability. We have local ownership. We need to build local ownership. With our locals, we can do many things. I remember that in the course of all what we've been doing, there was no funding for particular activities to get to some community hubs. What happened? It is the community themselves who came to us and said, no, we are going to see how to chip in a little bit for you to come back and empower us. Those funds and those chiefs came right to Buea to meet me and tell me, Nedan, let's bless you and let's see how we can go to this particular community. And then when we went, one of such community is Santa Bafoche in the Northwest. And you needed to see how they call on their elites, to contribute money in order for them to carry out community dialogue and other programs, cultural programs, which made so many returnees to go back to that community. So local ownership is very important. We have also what we call social enterprise models, economic empowerment. We've been sponsoring so many youths and women, to carry out economic activities. And once they do that, we teach them how to pass on the gift. So because you succeeded in the poverty graduation program, which you passed through in our organization, you have the obligation to also empower one or two other persons, depending, on the level of funding or incomes which you get. And that's how many other beneficiaries have benefited, have been empowered. And it goes on and it goes on. So if we are talking about sustainability, we must innovate. We must diversify. So I will talk about that diversification. I will talk about innovation. Thank
you so much. We must innovate, we must diversify. But you said something about partnership.
Yeah.
Strong partnership. This is so relevant. And let me get to Mr. Nanga. What can civil societies and think tanks do in order to build strong partnership? Maybe in 2 minutes we can say that and then so we can interact with our audience.
Je crois que déjà c'est une idée qui commence à être connue, hein, la mise en place des think tanks. Il faut commencer pour être efficace en matière de partenariat ou d'attirer, de créer de l'adhésion ou de l'attention. Il faut déjà être connu. Beaucoup de gens ne savent pas qu'est-ce que c'est et comment ça se construit, ainsi de suite. Mais je pense qu'aujourd'hui, de plus en plus, les gens en parlent et on commence à avoir des effets. Je crois que c'est la meilleure manière de créer et de renforcer des partenariats. Parce que quand vous avez des évidences d'efficacité d'une action, c'est ça qui va faire votre publicité. Et donc, les partenaires vont venir à vous parce que vous avez des évidences, des résultats sur la base du travail que vous avez déjà fait. C'est pour ça que ce genre de cadre permet quand même aussi de voir qu'il y a des expériences, qu'il y a des réussites, qu'il y a aussi des difficultés, qu'il y a des challenges. Et à partir de ce moment-là, on a de la matière pour aller chercher des partenariats et renforcer ces partenariats. Mais je voudrais aussi dire que le partenariat doit aussi se faire entre OSC. Le partenariat, ce n'est pas seulement aller vers ce qu'on appelle les bailleurs ou bien les partenaires techniques financiers. Le partenariat doit se faire entre nous-mêmes parce que si plusieurs organisations se mettent ensemble pour construire un espace, un think tank, il me semble qu'on aura efficacement travaillé sur la possibilité de ne pas être dépendant, n'est-ce pas, d'une seule source de financement pour, n'est-ce pas, animer des think tanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it's time for us to interact a bit with our highly esteemed and lovely audience. You have followed our conversation. Probably you also have your own experience. You have your contributions to make and questions. And now the floor is yours. Anyone who wants to contribute, ask a question, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Wana Emmanuel Bumako of Amani Transformational Service. At least your intervention shows that the civil society and think tanks are doing their work. They are doing work on the field. We have seen that people are active, and I want to applaud that, and it's something we need to see how we can encourage. However, the issue comes at the level of the impact, and that's why Mr. Nyanga, Philip Nyanga, concluded on collaboration and coordination of the civil society, which is quite important. But much has been said about peace building. But inside the peace building, I think we always forget the context of Africa, which is state building. State building has not really been achieved in Africa. And that's why when we talk about positive peace, we talk about attitudes, structures, and institutions that have to put in place in order to create a vibrant society. So my question now is for how can the civil society and think tanks really play an active role in making sure that states are responsive or address the needs of its citizens? And how can we, because we are living now in a world where we are in a global shift, geopolitical reshaping, and people are thinking about new alliances in this world that we are living. So we are going to be in a moment where human rights and democracy will no longer be important as it was the case in the Cold War. So how are we going, us in Africa, to make sure we can put states responsible to really play their role and make sure they can create an enabling society to make sure people can live peacefully and also be prosperous? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll take the second question here.
Thank you for your wonderful intervention. My name is Frank Ivenia. I am a member of International Network of Francophone Youth. And I have a contribution, but I will speak in French. Ça fait pratiquement 8 ans que j'ai mis sur pied une plateforme qui consiste à renforcer l'implication des jeunes dans la protection et la promotion du patrimoine culturel. Et je pense aussi que certainement certains intervenants l'ont rappelé, que l'une des causes aussi en Afrique, ou alors il y a des causes en Afrique qui peuvent être, des causes de conflit en Afrique qui peuvent être d'origine culturelle. L'année dernière, à l'occasion de la célébration de la Journée internationale de la paix, j'ai eu à travers cette organisation qui s'appelle ODECAF à mettre sur pied une conférence en partenariat avec l'UNESCO pour ressortir les différents mécanismes culturels africains qui contribuent notamment à la résolution des conflits. Il est important d'aborder ce point parce que de plus en plus, on a des relents de tribalisme, des relents de xénophobie et autres. Ceci est dû par le fait qu'on ne connaît pas parfois l'autre. On ne connaît pas parfois notre identité culturelle. Il est important pour les jeunes générations beaucoup plus de savoir en réalité qui ils sont afin de mieux communier avec les peuples. J'ai entendu tout à l'heure un panéliste dire que il y a des peuples qui sont divisés par des frontières, mais qui sont similaires socioculturellement. Et on sait bien comment est-ce qu'on a hérité de ces réalités à travers la colonisation, la division des frontières, les conférences de Berlin. Mais il ne se fait pas tard pour les jeunes, il ne se fait pas tard pour beaucoup de personnes qui souhaiteraient renouer et connaître leurs origines afin de mieux communier avec les autres peuples. Les barrières nationales ou les nationalités ne sont pas des freins. On peut reconstruire nos identités pour mieux communier. Et je vais terminer en invitant nous tous ici présents à connaître comment est-ce que on peut facilement s'intégrer. Et l'une des pistes pour l'intégration socio-culturelle qui est un gage de préservation de la paix, c'est l'apprentissage des langues maternelles. Donc je vais m'arrêter là pour le moment. Merci.
Merci. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think while waiting, maybe we can start to, okay?
Thank you for giving me the floor. I am Professor Gatsi Tazo, Associate Professor at the University of Boya. I will be straightforward. I just want to find out, we are talking about the contribution of think tanks in shaping peace in Central Africa. I just want to find out, I don't know if it's a drive, but I know it's one of the main factors of the lack of peace in our countries. The lady spoke about the shrinking the political space. I don't know, how do we address that? How do we address what I link it to the lack of political will of our government to open the civic space and to open up to think tanks and civil society, generally speaking? How do you address that issue when we know that our government do not want actually to open up to those civil society organizations? And maybe in the follow-up to my question, I would just want to ask to ourselves here whether we think that we are on the right track in trying to make our government to be on the right track. If we take into consideration what is going on in our country now, do we really think our fight are paying off? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more question here, and then we'll be giving some answers.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, moderator. I am Dr. Daniel Ekongwe. I am Regional Director for Portuguese-speaking Africa of the Pan-African Institute for Development. But important in this context, I am Associate Professor with the United Nations University for Peace. A brilliant field experience and the expertise from the panel. The CEO of Reach Out has been a pioneer in this effort, in this country, in this region. We applaud her effort and the other persons that are here present. Usually in this setup, in this conference, I like to address myself all the time to the younger people, not to those who have attained higher levels of education, because the world is evolving. That said, I'm going to make just an observation. What we should understand is that there are 3 or 4 types of conflicts. And we have to put them into context. Because when we contextualize conflict, we will be able to identify the actors, the institutions, and we'll be able to know the methodologies of this conflict. In that way, we will understand the process of policy and how it can affect or be implemented. In the absence of that, it will take a longer duration. Conflict, peace, they all turn around our understanding of the global dynamics of the world system, whether it is interstate conflicts, internal conflicts, or state formation conflicts. The challenges are interconnected Because we are the age of globalization. And globalization simply means unprecedented interconnectedness in trade, culture, policy, history, geography, and what we can mention. Since 1945, in terms of interstate conflicts, there has not been conflict in Europe, interstate conflict, until the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Since 1945, there has only been few conflicts in Europe, the former Yugoslavia, which has led today to the creation of so many states. Since 1945, there have been close to 350 conflicts, interstate, internal, and state formation in Africa. I want to focus on this context, the African context of conflict and peace. If we as Africans do not understand the dynamics of the global system, of global politics, we will be doing circles. Whether we present our case, our arguments at the Security Council, at the African Union, or we have funding, it is a very complex situation because conflict or peace has gained a very high level of sophistication and manipulation, that the challenges are so interconnected that we should contextualize one after the other. Interstate conflict, internal conflicts, and nation conflicts. Much of our experiences here have been on internal and state formation conflicts. But then, the challenges, Madam Esther mentioned that. I will put it, which is the principal theme of what I'm going to present during my time later this evening. It is on the pedagogy of education and training. Because the pedagogy of education and training, I speak particularly to the younger people, is the orthodoxy of colonial educational system that do not impact on the student or the trainee the essence of expertise. It is based on theory and memorization. The case of Cameroon has seen the liberalization of higher education with the creation of 11 state universities, but a plethora of university institutes. The Pan-African Institute for Development, I want to give this example and close it, this observation. The Pan-African Institute for Development in 2016 had an issue with the Cameroon government because the Ministry of Higher Education made a public statement that the programs of Pan-African Institute for Development were not accredited. That was a CSO organization in conflict with the state. How did we solve that problem? I'll give two examples. International pressure, which Madam said, but in another context, partnership and networking. Through that partnership, individuals and institutionalized, the Cameroon government set up a global evaluation committee for the 60-year cooperation between the Pan-African Institute for Development and the Cameroon government. Why did we have that conflict? Because the programs of the Pan-African Institute for Development were professional. I'm not saying going to university to study history, economics, and others are not important. But I want Africans to know that the system of education in Africa today was developed in Europe in the 19th century for a purpose. And we are still stuck in that 19th century orthodoxy. That is why the education and training is having no impact. But if you take the education and training that Madam has done, Carrefour Institute has done, Pan-Africa has done, and maybe Catholic University now, and the universities that are coming in place in terms of professionalization of the pedagogy of higher education, there is an impact. The change in our African society, the good governance, the democratization process is not going to come by some perfect mechanism or policy implemented by the government. Because the government operates on the basis of party politics who are aligned to elitism and with no ideological platform. I believe that there is an increasing and established middle class in Cameroon and in the Central African region, that education and training will gradually bring what they call generational change. Nobody stops generational change. After every 25 to 40 years, the system of each country, institutional system, state building must change. Whether you have the resources to manipulate the population, the media, the military, between 25, 40 years, the country must change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your thought-provoking contribution. Because of time constraint, we are going to go straight and answer the question on state building, and I'll invite Esther Omam to address that question, if possible.
Yes, if we must talk about state building, stronger collaboration between the state, think tanks, and civil society, what I would say here is that there is need for trust. I want us to underscore the word trust. There is need for mutual respect. There is need for evidence-based advocacy, which will lead to greater collaboration. There is need for us to share documented impact with government. How does it work? We all know about the major national dialogue, we came and went. But some of the outcomes of the major national dialogue did not consider women's participation. We did not confront the government, we as women. We organized ourselves. When I met the Prime Minister, we told him that we're going to the field and we want our people in the restive regions to tell us what they feel and how they see these things happening. And we did that through a study with all key stakeholders. After mapping the key stakeholders, we did that, analyzed data, generated a report, we sought for audience, and we presented it to the Prime Minister. And he saw that the Committee for De-Radicalization was not having any woman. When you look at the Committee for the follow-up of the outcome of the major national dialogue, it was the same. Now, when you look at education, you look at bilingualism and so on. So we didn't want to get the argument of force. As they often say, we wanted to show through evidence that we were making a point and that we want the government to fill in this gap. And immediately 1 week after, the government invited 7 women peace builders to be part of the Committee for De-Radicalization of the Diaspora. And they invited us during the sit down of the Committee for the follow-up of the outcomes of the major national dialogue and in other committees. And you know, this made us to understand that at times it's not confrontation that works. It's through collaboration, through trust, and mutual respect. You all are here maybe without not knowing that. Richard was suspended by Minat since December on counts that Anif said that we receive huge exorbitant sums, billions. And as a result of that, this money tempers with the financial integrity of the country. It therefore means that we are doing money laundering. That was a conclusion. We do not go into confrontation. I want to tell you how you build trust. We had documented evidences, justifications of all our funding sources, which are legal. We had all our audited financial reports, which maybe they didn't know that we had. And we had, and we provided all of this, which made the state to calm down a little bit and revisit the action which they took. And we carried out advocacy, serious advocacy, without being confrontational, which has led to auditioning and so on, which we wanted. And which maybe by the end of it tomorrow, or the months or the days or the weeks to come, when this thing will be over, it will be respect. So here we are talking about respect from government and respect from civil society. Now, how do you bring government to the level of trust and respect? Is by sharing documented evidences of the impact of your work, and by making sure that you align also with the priorities of the state, because let us not forget that civil society complements government's actions. Many times we take ourselves to be the enemies of government, or the government take themselves to be our enemies. No, we must find the common ground, and the common ground is that there are priorities which should be addressed, where you have little or no impact of government's policies. That's where we go. And the government learns to recognize this once you share the evidence of the impact of your work on ground. This is just what I wanted to add. And to end it here, I want to say that one of the key challenges which think tanks and civil society face is access restriction to access conflict zones. Safety and security issues are key when it comes to states of fragility, when we are talking about challenges and so on. My children have been kidnapped. My own two children were kidnapped. Our humanitarian cars burned and another one destroyed. We were attacked in our home on 3 counts. I personally had to sleep in the hospital. We had to relocate, analyze, make our objectives clear so that the non-state armed groups and the government will understand where we stand in terms of impartiality. I wanted to add this so that we do not forget about this other aspect. Now, there is also poor recognition or inadequate recognition of locally generated data. Yes, this is not recognized. These are some of the challenges which we face when it comes to think tank and civil society work. Thank you.
Thank you once more. What is clear is that there is need for trust between civil society, think tanks, and the government. And that said, I think in a way, in order to make think tanks or against civil society responsive, or again the government responses as well, civil societies as well, think tanks also have to be responsible, also have to be responsive. They need to be transparent as well in terms of their funding, in terms of their documentation. It is not a relationship of between enemies, right? Civil society and the government have to be partners to work for peace and development. So each one have their own part to play. That said, I will be concluding by giving the floor to Madame Dogmo. What is your take on the constricted space of civil society? That's the threat that civil society faces vis-a-vis working with government. I think that was one of the questions somewhere. Maybe in 1 minute, so that we can conclude this session.
Yes, I think you have already mentioned it is the way we look at each other. Yes. Sometimes we are seen as threat and vice versa. Meanwhile, that is not the case. We were very clear that we are complementing the government effort, and it should be clear. And to just give a concrete example to confirm what you just said, we talk about National Action Plan of 1325. When we did assessment 2 years back, we were able to have some good positive outcome from the implementation, but also some challenges. And the challenges were also both from the government side and from the civil society. We were able to have a whole paragraph, a whole chapter on the weaknesses also on the civil society, so that we are able to work on our weaknesses as well. So we recognize that from both sides, a lot needs to be done. But Esther said it, trust. Yeah, they should not look at us as if we are enemy. We are just supporting their effort. I remember I received a call when we started the women's station room a few years back from Yaoundé, from the police, and they asked me like 1 hour, asked me question, what are you getting information, are you monitoring? Then I was able to ask them that if in case I'm seeing a danger, can I call you yes or no? They say, oh, madam, it's good. Yeah, so we are just supporting. Then I want to say that investing in youth is something very, very important. It's another strategy. Investing in youth to be able to ensure that intergenerational leadership. And also cross-border, because the first question was about state building. It's also about cross-border exchanges. We were able to bring, most of the time, we have other people from other countries in our country to share their experiences and vice versa. I remember when we have the WIF Regional Conference in 2015, we went to the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Family, and the lady from DRC was able to talk about their experiences to Madame Abena, to say how they came about to have a national action plan. And on that day, Madame Minister said, je comprends, nous allons avoir un plan d'action national. So it's very important. There was a question there about the what can we do about the essence of conducting analysis. I can't remember very well. Yeah, because it mentioned, okay, our identity and so on, yes. Very true. I just want to say that you also received the link of this document. It's Youth Education Handbook on Multiculturalism, Social Cohesion and Peace. Some of the educational fact sheet in this is to be able, us as Cameroonians, to know ourselves. Where are we coming from? He rightly put it, before we start trying to build, to reconnect, because we are kind of divided now, we should know where are we coming from. I don't want to answer more than that. That is very, very true. We need to redefine ourselves. Where are we coming from? And this is something that we try to address in this. And then lastly, Professor, that's very good. I agree totally. I agree 100%. And that is the essence. That's why I mentioned the essence of conducting analysis. Because our work should be based on analysis. And that analysis should be top down. We don't go, when we go to New York with Esther, we don't speak on the air. We bring the experiences. And for some years now, we have been able to secure funding and to get some women to speak by themselves, even at the African Union level. So the simple way to answer that is that we really put emphasis on evidence-based advocacy and also experience sharing beyond borders. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are actually ending this session now. I wonder if there is any final thoughts for you, Mr. Nanga. Any final thoughts in 30 seconds?
Oui, juste peut-être pour dire que à la réalité, il faudrait davantage associer toutes les parties dans les think tanks. Si on veut travailler à créer un environnement favorable à la résolution des paix ou à la prévention de la paix. Je voudrais aussi des conflits. Je voudrais aussi, surtout, que les gens sachent que il n'y a pas de paix sans la justice. Si nous voulons travailler sur la paix, nous devons travailler d'abord sur la justice. Et chaque personne est responsable de la justice. C'est-à-dire que si vous voyez à côté de vous un acte d'injustice et que vous n'êtes pas sensible à cela, alors là, posez-vous la question si vous n'êtes pas un acteur de conflit. Parce que vous êtes en train de laisser prospérer un conflit futur. C'est l'injustice qui crée le conflit.
C'est ça.
Donc, si vous voulez prévenir les conflits et avoir un environnement de paix, ne soyez plus indifférents. Ne soyons plus indifférents aux actes d'injustice.
Thank you so much.
Déconstruisons l'idée selon laquelle il y a l'État de l'autre côté et les citoyens de l'autre côté. Nous sommes dans un même environnement. Le pays nous appartient.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There can be no peace without justice. Esther,
peace without
any
justice.
final thoughts? In 30 seconds? 30 seconds.
I would just say that think tank, civil society have so much work to do and so much expectations. And so being here reflecting on the yesterday and today is going to shape our tomorrow if we carry out the reflections meaningfully. Thank you.
Carry out reflections meaningfully. Thank you. 30 seconds, Madam Dongmo.
Peace is also about us. We have peace in our hand. So before we turn to our neighbor, let's ask ourselves, what do we do ourselves on a daily basis to build peace? All those pieces are going to build sustainable peace. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Peace is also in our hands. And so we have shaped our discussion this morning on the critical role of civil society, and especially think tank in peace building in Central Africa. It has come out clearly that think tanks play a critical role in peace building in Central Africa. But at the same time, they also face a number of challenges, a combination of challenges, which are both structural and operational. And it is actually the responsibility of each and every one of us in this hall to see how we can jointly work together to overcome these challenges. That said, I'm going to declare this session closed.
Thank you.
And a hand of applause for our panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you.